Welcome back to Simbright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful pattern bustier, as you can see right there on the thumbnail and on the video. So I'll be sharing with you the tips and tricks to creating this pattern right on your pattern, okay? So you can see what I got here, looking so beautiful. So I'm going to bead this part later. So I'll just get a matching bead, crystal beads, just mix my beads and come out with a beautiful design on this pattern. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I'll encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial. So here you can see my puff sleeve is actually puffing. As you can see, you are also going to learn how to make your sleeve, your cap sleeve, to puff the way this puffed. So this is a very detailed video, so please, I will encourage you to subscribe and turn on your notification bell to receive other videos coming up on this channel. So thanks for watching and please stay tuned. This is the second part of this tutorial, which is the sewing tutorial. I will encourage you to watch the part 1 of this tutorial, which is the drafting tutorial. I dropped the link to this tutorial on the description box below. It's time to trace out this pattern. So you can see me tracing out exactly what I drafted. So just make sure you trace out everything correctly, okay? So this part is very, very important, the tracing part. So I made sure I trace the down piece and the upper piece exactly the way they are, okay? So make sure you bring it out that way and you cut it the same way. So here you can see me cutting through the patterns. So I'm just going through the rigorous pattern, as you can see. Actually, this is not actually an easy pattern, but then it's something that can be achieved as well. So I kept going through the rigorous pattern, as you can see right there, and I have my pattern. So I want to fit it into my pattern to be sure I have exactly what I wanted. So I have to open up this part. You can see how I opened it up. I just made a pinch with my scissors and cut it off. So this is it, and it fits very well. So right now, I'm going to replace my dart. The dart that runs to the mid armhole, I'm replacing it, okay? So I rule my line across the armhole, and I'm going to replace the 1.5 inch of my dart. Very important. And you can see how I tilt my ruler. Just tilt it the way I'm tilting to connect it. So you can see the shape of the dart and the shape of the replacement is looking alike. So the pattern is very much ready right now. So the next thing we want to do now is to cut out the pattern. So you can see I'm cutting it out accordingly. So this is the little yoke that will be attached to the asymmetric bodice. So I named the upper part up because this can be confusing when I want to cut it. And the part of the sleeve, I made an arrow to it before I cut. So now I'm going to cut out this pattern accordingly. So I'm going to take it through the asymmetric neckline, and I'll go into my bust dart to the down part. So I want you to be careful on this part. You can see how I'm following the lines. I came down the initial pattern of this dress on the down piece. That is what I'm cutting off. So don't let these designs to confuse you. So I'm cutting through the darts right now, as you can see. So I made sure I cut out the darts, and here is my pattern. But I want to increase the neckline, so you have to match the chest line. The chest line has to be matched. You can see how I'm matching it. So if you look there, you can see there's a little shortage on some of them. So just gum your paper like this and reconnect that part. That's all. So when you are sewing it, you don't have any shortage at that point. So that is why I have to join my paper to do this. So I'm done joining it, and the next thing is to cut it out accordingly. So I'll go ahead and cut it out, as you can see. So I separated the pattern this way. So the pattern, the front bodice, is ready right now. I'm going to close up my bust dart. So I applied my adhesives and closed up my bust dart accordingly. So here I'm closing up my bust dart, as you can see. So the front pattern is ready and the strap is also ready. So that is how I'm going to join this dress when we start to sew it. So this is F1, F2 and F3 for this pattern. So now we are going over to the back bodice. So for the back bodice, I mark my chest line, my waistline, and my full length is now 22 inches because of my bust dart technique. My waist is 15 inches. I took away 2 inches apart from the chest line. So I ruled my shoulder line. This is my center back, my chest line, waist, and the full length. The full length is 22 inches for the back right now. So my neck width is 4 inches and I marked my shoulder divide by 2, came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, drew a straight line, got the midpoint and go in by half an inch. My bust divide by 4, I marked it and I connected my armhole. My waist divide by 4, I marked it, I added 1 inch for my dart, I connected. The hip divide by 4, I also marked and connected. Then I'm going to get the back dart. So I'm using my waist divide by 4, divide by 2 again, and I marked it on the chest line, on the waistline, and on the full length, and came up by 1 inch on the chest line. I shared my dart half, and then I connected my back dart. So here I came down on my neckline by 8 inches. So you can come up by 2 inches from the chest line or just mark 8 inches. So now I'm going to connect my neckline. So my neckline is actually, I came in by 3 inches on that neckline from the armhole line. So now I'm contouring my back by 1 inch and I'm going to replace all I contoured. So that is exactly what I'm doing right here. I believe you understand. So this is the contour replacement. So now we are going to make a shoulder dart for the back. So I get the midpoint of my shoulder seam line, I connected. So here is B1, B2 and our pattern is ready. I came up by 3 inches. Remember we came up in the front by 3 inches. So I connected so everything would look the same. So I just go ahead and cut off the patterns accordingly. So here I added half an inch on the front and 2 inches on the side. I made notches on the waistline so I'll be able to join them accordingly. So the front pattern is ready with the half an inch I added all over, and on the hemline I added 1 inch. So what I'm creating right now is my bust forwarding, my bustier forwarding. So this is how I like to go about it, but I will encourage you to go about your wadding padding the way you wish. Okay, so this is my own method and I'm not explaining it because I have a lot of them on this channel. So if I cut out my bustier right now on my pattern, I'm going to make use of this bustier to pad my dress. So I'm done cutting it out and I place it on my wadding. So I'll just go ahead and cut and add half an inch at the front piece to sew them together. So they are ready. I made notches at the bust point right now. So the next is to place it on the bustier. So I'll just go ahead and place it on the bustier, as you can see. So here I've used my hairstay to cover them. I added the wadding on the dress itself, on the fabric itself. The lining does not have any wadding. So I just clean up the edges. There will be little excesses, so those excesses just cut them off. So this is my strap. I put my strap right side to right side and stitched on one side. So this is what I have. I'll attach it on the side of the bustier that is connected to the mid armhole. So I'll secure it with my pin, and I'll come with my lining, lay my lining right side to right side. I make sure I pin all the same lines. Then I'll go and stitch at 0.5 inch and top stitch. So here I'm done top stitching, and you can see what I have right here. So I come over to join the back piece. I made notches on the waistline, so I'll be able to join this back piece effectively. So I'm going to remove my patterns and pick them the way they are, and I'm going to sew half an inch for the rest of it. So I'll go ahead to my machine right now to couple them on. I'll pin them on the waistline for each the way they are, all of them, and sew at half an inch. So here I'm done sewing. Next is to place them right side to right side, lining and fabric, and stitch the neckline at half an inch. So after pinning, I stitched and I top stitched, gave it a good press. This is what I got. Next is to place the front bodice right side to right side, and I'm going to stitch the sides. So I'm going to stitch the sides accordingly, fabric to fabric, lining to lining, and this is what I got. So now my dress is ready. So the next thing we are going to do now is to jump into the design. So this is a stylish design that is attached to this dress, which we traced out. So I'm going to place my fabric right now. So you can use crepe fabric for this, you can use Mikado. I use Mikado for this. I hasted my Mikado, placed it right side to right side, then place my pattern. So I'm going to secure my pattern with my pins. So make sure you place the pattern to relax. If it does not relax, it will not be able to fit into that dress. So I make sure it's relaxed and I pin them accordingly. So make sure you take your time and pin it. So here, after pinning, I stitched by the side of the pattern. So but I did not stitch by all the sides, because there are some sides you don't need to stitch, so it will be able for you to turn. But I'm going to show you those sides after I'm done stitching. So I followed my lines, as you can see right there. This is how I stitched the down piece. So I'm working on the down piece of this pattern. Later I will go over to the front piece. So you can see all the parts I'm stitching. So at this point I stopped. So the part that has dotted lines, I did not stitch them. So this is the part I'm going to turn this pattern from. So this is very tricky. So I remove my patterns from this from the pattern. So here I made that hole and I added my seam allowance to it. So this is the only way I can turn this dress. So I just pinched at the seam allowance. I will show you how to finish up this knot. So you just pinch at that part and cut it off, but the seam allowance is still there. So I'm going to turn this piece right now, so you can see the part I left open. So just watch this video very well. When you are making your own, you can see where I left open. So I left open that part that is big, so it will be able to turn very well. So I'm done turning, and you can see the part I left open. I'm going to the machine now to close them. So what I did was to turn it the other way and stitch to the extent I will be able to stitch. So I stitched at half an inch to the extent I will be able to stitch, and I left this small part open. So I kept stitching because I felt I need to stitch a little more. So once I got to the point I'm able to stitch, then I turned it. I made notches on it. So make sure you make notches. The notches will help you to turn it effectively. So I used my screwdriver and turned it. So I'm done turning it. This is what I got. So for that knot, or the part that has the circle, so the part that is remaining first, I first top stitched it. I put the seam allowance inside, that is the half inch seam allowance, and I first top stitch on it. accordingly. So I just use top stitching to close up that part. So if you are doing that, please be careful. So I also made notches on that knot. Just make notches. You can see I'm still seeing that circle, so I have to make notches to enable the seam line to go in before I top stitch. So I now put them little by little, pushing the 0.5 inch inwards, and then I now top stitched around it. So like I said, this pattern is not actually easy, but it also worth it once you are done. So I took my time to go around that circle, top stitching it, but don't just mind how it looks, because we are going to bead on it. So by the time we bead, the beading will cover every excesses you might have that is not necessary. So you can see I went top stitching till I got the circle the way I want it. So here is the circle, and I gave it a good press and it came out very well. So we are going to work on the upper piece of this circle. So I use the same method I just taught you for this. So just highlight the circles before you stitch. So the points I'm going to mark, I'm marking now are the parts I'm not going to stitch. So I did not stitch all of this. The part you see me mark, these are the parts I left open. So I went over to add half an inch on the seam allowance, because that part is the seam allowance and this part is the armhole part. And this is the seam allowance that will join the shoulder. Of course, when you are working on this dress, you understand what I just did. So I went over to cut them accordingly. So I'm cutting on the seam allowance. So the part I just cut now are the part that I left open. So the rest of these parts, I left them open because I'm done stitching on it. So I took off my pattern. So I stitched it the way I stitched the first one. Okay, so it's just the same thing. You go ahead and stitch it. So the only difference is you are going to see the part I did not stitch, so it will be able for you to turn. Okay, sometimes this pattern might be difficult to turn, but if you follow video instructions, you will see the parts I left open, and those are the parts you are going to leave when you are stitching yours, so you can turn this part effectively. So what I did is to go ahead and trim off the parts I've stitched. You might not see the stitching allowance, my stitches, but I know I stitched this part and I'm cutting it off. So I made little circles. These are the circles I'm going to pinch open. So I pinched them open the way I did for the down piece. So you can see me pinching them open accordingly. So you can see the part I left open. All these parts I left them open and I stitched the rest of them. So you can see the open part. So I start to turn them one after the other. So I turn this one. Then once I'm done turning that one, I went over the other way and turned this other part. So this is it, and you can see the part I left open. So it's very obvious I left the tiniest part open. So now I'll turn it the other way and stitch from the points I'm touching. So you can see I'm done stitching that part. So I gave it a good press. So this is the part I'm going to top stitch. So I just go over to the machine now and I put the seam allowances and top stitch on them. So this is it. I'm done top stitching and I gave it a good press. So I'm going to lay it on the dress right now, but before that I'm going to reduce my lining by 1 inch. So you go ahead and reduce your lining by 1 inch. So because we are going to turn this dress to have a perfect inseam finishing, so I'll cut at 1 inch, reduce the lining to the end. So I'm done reducing it right now. The next I'm going to do is to fix my zip, and which I've fixed. And then I'm going to match the lining and the fabric. So you can use any method of finishing your blouse. You must not follow this pattern anyway. So I made notches to make it easy for me to turn. So I now, there is a little opening on the zip part, which is normal, so I'll just go ahead and open the seams and follow the zip stitches and close it. So now I'm going to turn the whole dress to the front. After turning it to the front, I will move ahead to give it a good press. So I'll bring out all the points, and then I've pressed it down. This is what I got. So the next thing we are going to do now, because the dress is very much ready, is to place the pattern on the front the way we drafted it. So I'm going to secure it with my pins accordingly. So just go ahead and secure with your pins, which I've done. So make sure you align them exactly the way they are drafted. So this is exactly what I'm doing right here. So after arranging it right now, we'll move over to the front piece. So for the front piece, you place the shoulder seams together. So then you lay the back piece. Then I'm opening up the lining to wrap it up. That is how I like to join my neckline. So I secured with my pins and I wrapped it up and stitched at 0.5 inch. For this other side, this is the shoulder seam. I'll just lay it at the back shoulder seam and also wrap it up accordingly. So I'll go ahead and stitch at 1/2 inch. So I'm done stitching and this is what I got. Next is to start arranging the neckline the way we drafted. So I make sure I arrange them exactly the way I drafted. So you can just bring your pattern paper, or you can use the picture of this dress to arrange them. So here I am arranging it the way it should be. So you keep making it to balance, okay? So you can also wear it on the dress and on the body and arrange it if your length is available. So this is what I got after I'm done arranging. So the next thing we are going to do now is to fix our sleeve. So we are going to fix our sleeve, but before that I want to top stitch on the dress. So this is how you are going to top stitch. So you just use a matching thread and top stitch all those patterns, as you can see. So I just keep top stitching them the way you see me top stitching them right now. So after top stitching, I'm going to cut out my sleeve. I want you to pay attention to this sleeve. Although I don't have enough fabric, but this is my basic bodice pattern, and this is a basic bodice sleeve, sorry, and this is a cap sleeve. So I came up by 3 inches from my basic sleeve, 3 inches, and connected it to the armhole. So that is to give you that puff effect you are seeing right there on the thumbnail. So I have to cut it off. So you add 3 inches or 3.5 inches to give you that puff effect on top of your sleeve. So now I'm going to take off this pattern and add up the sides of my sleeve. So I'm going to separate my sleeve. I have 2 pieces of it, but because I don't have enough fabric, what I did was to join the size of the sleeve. I believe you understand. So I'll just go ahead and join it up. So I brought my piece of fabric and I'm aligning them. I'm going to join them. So I'm done joining it, and you can see I even cut my lining for it as well. So I'm going to lay my lining and my fabric right side to right side, and I'm going to stitch the down piece of it accordingly. So I went ahead to use 0.5 inch to stitch and top stitch. I gave it a good press. This is what I have. I'll put the sleeve together and sew my seam line. So here is my seam line. I'm turning the sleeve to the right side right now. Next is to stitch the lining and the sleeve together. You put them together and make them one piece. Then we are going to take it to the dress right now. So I'm going to sew it on the dress. So this is how I'm going to sew it. I'll turn my fabric, my blouse, and pin the armhole. The armhole of the sleeve and the armhole of the blouse, you need to pin them accordingly. So from the armhole, you are going to stitch towards the shoulder seam line so you can make your pleats, okay? So make sure you make the pleats to be even. So I started from the armhole to stitch, and I also pinned the notch. I made a notch at the shoulder grain line and pinned it on the shoulder seam line. So whatever excess I have, that is what I'm going to pleat in. So here I'm done pleating my cap sleeve, and you can see how beautiful it looks. So we have gradually come to the end of this tutorial. So here you can see I've attached one of my sleeve, but on the other part of the sleeve, the pattern is going to serve as your armhole, okay? But if you want to make it a sleeveless, no problem. You just go ahead and use your bias and turn it if you want to make it a sleeveless. But I want to add a sleeve to mine, so that is why I'm showing you how to go about the sleeve one, okay? So I will bring the other sleeve right now, turn the dress to the right, to the wrong side, and insert my sleeve, pin it on the side, and then attach my sleeve accordingly. So this is a beautiful blouse, and I believe this blouse is very beautiful. Later I'm going to bead all over it, and that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. Please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell for more videos. Bye.